big hand of applause for the work he has done. Thank you very much, sir. The President of Royal College of Defense Studies, Alumni Nigeria, the wife of our Special Guest of Honor, we recognize your presence. The representative of the Ogun State Governor, duly respected, sir. Thank you for honoring this event. My task here is not simple. Usually you hear people say, my task is very simple. My own is not simple because this is a lecture by a former president being presented by a professor. I don't know how my task will be simple. God will help me. But before I go into summarizing or taking a look at the paper, maybe I should just share my own points because I deliberately waited so that when I come here I could say. There is a saying that I do not allow my juniors especially because I can't tell my seniors in the military. There is a saying I particularly discourage people to say. And this is the saying. You look at a young officer and you tell the officer, during my time, things were not like this. Why am I against such saying? Because I tell them that when you tell your juniors that during my time, things were not like this, you have actually failed. Because if things were good during your time, it's because the people who preceded you made it good. And I was very happy with what General Wahab said. He said leadership is everything. And everything is leadership. We've had people give examples here. My children did this, the school did that. What did you do? Because you are a leader in your own right, in your own sphere. I thought somebody would ask a question. I'm going to ask the question before I go into not reviewing the paper, summarizing the paper. We've had fractured word, fractured word, fractured word. I thought somebody would ask a question. Who fractured the word? Nobody asked that question. And until you are able to find out who fractured it, really trying to address how difficult it is for youth to survive will become a challenge. Finally, I agree with General Wahab again that the greatest threat in this sphere where we are, the greatest threat to national security is the breakup of the family unit. I am not here to present the paper, but the issues that were given in this paper clearly showed that family values have eroded. Parents do not have time. And I give this example. My daughter was in primary 2. It was Thanksgiving Day. And I went there expecting my daughter to be given a prize. First, mathematics, they didn't call her. English, they didn't call her. When they finished giving the prizes in academics, then I said, the best dancer for the year is Cassandra Adegbe. Everybody stood up and some parents were looking at me and clapping like they're cheering me up. I said, dancer. They said, yes. By the grace of God, Sandra is a barrister today. And that was because immediately they pronounced best dancer. I descended on her. Don't ask me how. And I'm on camera. The girl is a lawyer today, by the grace of God. I took my stand as a parent to change their narrative. So going back to summarizing this paper, I want to caution, like our elders say, what an elder says sitting down, if the youth climb an Iroko tree, they cannot say it. In that 1979, I was 7 years old. Somebody said he was 10 years old. I was 7 years old. And I can't even remember the things I remember. The only thing I remember that was the first time I went to the village. So to take a look at this paper, which I believe is a paper written by somebody who has seen this country from different perspectives and from different prisons, I think it's a paper that we need to take a look at and take the most important points that he has mentioned. The draft, I'm not summarizing your paper, sir. I'm just trying to do what they asked me to do. It started by telling us what he meant by the challenges. Talked about the fractured world. And I still asked the question, who fractured it? Nobody has answered. Then the world itself, we took a look at it. How do our children survive the fractured world? Big questions. And he went ahead to tell us the people we refer to as youths, that are between the ages of 15 to 35, and I think the upper limits are 40. So I don't know why some people say they are youth leader and they are 70 years old. So for the youth, like you rightly said, hope is turning into despair because the world is fractured. The family unit has been dissipated. Parents have so much things. I heard the professor talk about something that is my field, globalization. I had the privilege of schooling somewhere outside this country. And I told myself, globalization is going to be something I will study personally. Why? There are so many benefits of globalization, as you would see in this lecture. If you took a look at it, and if you're a student of globalization, in this lecture, honestly, it was brought up. But if you don't know the drivers of globalization, you will not understand. I used to tell people when I was in RCDS, the commandant always wanted me to give that analogy, is the fact that globalization is like a ball that ran from the west through Europe and crashed in Africa. Why did it crash? We do not have institutions, infrastructure to support them. We have strong men. I'm empowered today, I make these laws. Another person comes, is angry with you because you made those laws. So we don't have continuation. Why? Because our institutions are weak. In the lecture, we heard about the end of Baba's experience towards the end of the Second World War. He now went ahead to say, in fact, he even gave an example of how there was just one university in Nigeria. He had 5 job opportunities. Now there are over 300 universities. Our youths, including the ones I know, are sending me messages and telling me, sir, they say you are the only one that can get me a job. I say, how? But that's the reality. Over 300 universities, they don't have jobs. So who fractured it, sir? Was I the one that fractured it? Were you the ones? I think we all did. We all did. We're all responsible. And what is the problem now? In our houses, we want to be nice to our children. So we don't want to call them, bring them to. I'm not my children's friends. Everybody knows that. But I'm happy the first one is a lawyer. The second one, so the psychologist is doing masters right now. You can be their friends. But parents today want to be the friends of their children. And there's no way you can be the friends of the people you are leading. It's not possible. You can give them all they need. And that is what Baba tried to bring out. And I think the letter written looks like a letter, a paper presented from out of frustration. So what's going to happen? But I was consoled by his conclusion because he said in the next 10 years, he believes that in the next 10 years, there will be a change. I think we should clap for that statement. That in the midst of the despair and what we're experiencing, Baba said it's hopeful. The professor said it succinctly, it's very clear. When I was taking notes, I was like, so what is going to happen? What is tomorrow going to look like? But when he made that statement, the same person who sits down and trust me, you cannot find two like him in Nigeria, not even in our generation. With experiences from both fields and both lives. He gave us some suggestions. He started with the fact that we need to understand ourselves. We need to understand the dynamics of the continuous changing world. And of course, when you look at the issue of globalization, it's not going to stop. And I was surprised that, well, I think somebody mentioned it. My daughter, who is 12 years old, just turned 13, has ChatGPT. I've been seeing it, I've never loaded it because I feel it's like what we call wala in the military. It makes everything easy for you. But I like challenging myself. So a 13-year-old daughter already know what ChatGPT was even making recommendations, telling me some other things to do. And I told her recently that once it is 8 p.m., you drop your phone because they are busy there. And they just look at you, they don't understand our world. And it's out of that kind of observation that he went ahead to tell us that until we understand the world and know our ways, we're going to have challenges. He said we must be honest with ourselves. We adults, we must make sure we hand over or dictate to youth a transformational world. He went ahead to give us an example of Saudi Arabia and how, while we are still drilling oil, they are looking at researches of areas that they believe that will take care of the world in the next 100 years. Dubai have done it. So youth must be, the youth are not leaders of tomorrow. I've been hearing it. I've been leaders of tomorrow. But he said the youth are not leaders of tomorrow. The youth are the leaders of today. If the youth are kept out of the future, it will create a more fractured world. Adults and leaders must give the youth hope. So, he recommended to us very strongly, and I think both of us indirectly have mentioned that it talks about attitude, it talks about attributes, and it talks about character. If you look at all these factors, they are all factors that make up, and you get them from the family unit. So what is happening to the family unit? And somebody said one time that during my time, we used to trek to school. Now children are taking Range Rover to school. I said, no, what you forgot is that time people were taking Range Rover. It's not that you were trekking. And I told you, go back to your secondary school. You will still see families that are still trekking. Thank God for what you have done. Face your children and try to make sure you give them the good values. A very quick example again, I spent 4 weeks in my village with my first daughter because I wanted them to have identity. I don't know how many of us are taking our children to our village. They said my village. In fact, a one-time senator told me that it is from my village they used to collect juju. But I took my daughter to the village for 4 weeks. And when she was frowning, there was no internet, there was nothing. By the time we got back, she was telling the younger ones, you that has not been to your village, I know where I'm from. What if I've not done that? What if I wanted to make her feel very happy and keep her in Abuja on the 4 walls of Gusape? She would think that is life. She's schooling across, she doesn't have a problem with identity because she's quick to tell them where she's from. So are we the ones fracturing the world? Let's ask ourselves those questions. Please forgive me, I almost said praise the Lord. And the lecture went on to say tough times require tough minds. And the tough minds must be in tough bodies. What about the issue of government policies? I won't say in the lecture, in the presentation before I conclude, an issue came up that directly affects me. That I think our father was asking some youth, say, what did you study or what are you studying? They said they're studying business administration. And he said something. He said, how can you administer something you have not created? What? I just registered, there's a Miva University online. I just registered for Master's Business Administration. It is looking like the most difficult thing I've done in my life. Because like General Shino was said, the speed at which they go online and are typing, I do not have that speed. But I'm teaching myself. And I'm coming back to my children and telling them, do you want to be successful, you have to learn AI. But if I don't tell them and assume they know, I will have lost that leadership quality. You have to tell them. If you try to be their friends, trust me, you will cry when you're supposed to be playing golf in retirement. So the lecture ended by a suggestion. So youth are great resource. We should create a positive structure. We should help youth deal with the fractured world. Yes, because we created the fractured world, and that's one thing I want us to know. It was created by us. So we have to help them. We have to look back, take that leadership role, and insist on certain things for them. Finally, to the one that really struck the chord for me. In the conclusion, he said, I see a more secured, stable, multipolar world, which the world will attain, in which the world will attain in 10 years. And I think there's hope, or there's light at the end of the tunnel. Having said that, sir, I am not going to ask Professor whether I've done justice because I know I have not. Because you cannot do justice to a lecture presented by a professor, written by two-time head of state, not just Papa, 2 times head of state. On that note, I want to thank you very much, sir. And personally, the way I took this note is as if I will be presenting it somewhere, but I will refer to you, sir, so that it doesn't become plagiarism. Thank you very much. God bless you all.